So this is actually something I missed that happened later on last week, and I didn't see a lot of people talking about this. So Yak Gotti actually has new representation. I know, and a lot of you may not have heard this. A lot of you may have heard it and seen this document, but Kayla Bumpus took over. Well, I don't even want to say took over. She's co-counsel with Max and is helping handle the situation with getting Shannon out of jail. Well, not only is she handling that, but she's also working with Yak Gotti and trying to get him his bond. And we're going to talk about his emergency motion here in a second. But Thugger Daily posted this last week some point, and I completely missed it and disregarded it. What does he say? Kayla Bumpus is now representing Yak Gotti on his charges related to a fight he got into in June. He was charged with aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and jail riot charges. She will be attempting to get him out on bond. All right, so here's the first thing that Kayla filed on the 4th, and it's a waiver of arraignment and entry of appearance. What does it say? Comes now, defendant Diamante Kendrick, by and through his attorney below, signed and enters his plea of not guilty to the charges against him in the indictment and / accusation, and waives formal arraignment. The time within which defendants shall have to file motions is governed by the scheduling order will be entered by the court. Counsel has instructed the defendant of his / her duty to keep the clerk informed of any changes, address and has. And then defendant is represented by Kayla Bumpus. All right, y'all see that here, right? It's got her bar number, address. We don't need all that, her email and so forth. All right, so Kayla's been putting in work on this. Also, we see what the charges here: aggravated battery, aggravated assault, and riot in penal institution. Now, Doug's going to go on to talk about this, and we're going to see it later. When you're in Rice Street, I mean, you kind of have to do these things to survive. And we even saw the Department of Justice say, listen, this jail is not safe for anyone. These Fulton County jails in general are just an issue. So some of these may be able to go away depending on the facts surrounding these situations. But I also wanted to get into, speaking of Doug Weinstein, he spoke about this a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, when it comes to his former client, I believe it is now, getting this motion for bond. So let's see what Doug Weinstein has to say. And shout out to Doug, man. He's been doing some great interviews and content.
So I see that there has been a motion for bond filed by Kayla Bumpus to bond Diamante out for the charges that he picked up while in Rice Street. And I'm sure that Kayla will end up prevailing on this. The shame is that, you know, if you're locked up in Rice Street for 30 months, awaiting or while on trial, and you are charged with gang activity, you're going to pick up charges just surviving at Rice Street. So
it's a fact.
It's really a shame that these are pending. I know in a lot of other states, when this kind of stuff happens, and you're found not guilty on the main charge, the reason you're locked up, they kind of let the other ones go and you leave. It's just a shame. Here we have a man locked up, probably really shouldn't have been locked up, since he was never a threat to the community. He wasn't a risk of flight, and risk of flight is the main thing. He gets locked up, he picks up charges, but whatever. The main point is, I see this emergency motion for bond has been filed, and I would certainly expect it to be granted, and I cannot wait for him to get out.
Yeah, that's going to be a dope moment too when he actually gets out. I'm sure Doug and Yak Gotti will reconnect at some point. And I'm sure they're probably talking now as well. So shout out to Kayla for putting in work. This is the actual emergency motion for bond, and we're going to read through it real quick. Shout out again to Thugger Daily for following this trial and covering it so perfectly. He says that Yak Gotti files an emergency bond motion in his case related to the jail fight charges, which we just read through. His lawyer quotes the Department of Justice's report finding on the lack of safety in Fulton County Jail, which was made last month. And we reviewed that whole thing. What does it say? The state of Georgia versus Deamonte Kendrick. Emergency motion for bond. Comes now, defendant Deamonte Kendrick by and through his attorney and moves the court to grant a reasonable bond in said cause for the following reasons. I mean, one being this man was just found innocent of all these charges and he shouldn't have been held in here in the first place. Yeah, I'm going to read this in a second, but y'all think about this. Yak Gotti was found not guilty on all charges, which means he has been sitting in jail for absolutely nothing. And now you're saying because of the offenses that he committed in jail, which he shouldn't have been in the first place. He shouldn't have been in the first place because he was denied bond there before. That we're going to hold him accountable for just trying to survive. I mean, what a nasty, vicious cycle this is. I will do everything in my power to be law abiding and stay on this side of the law. Anyway, defendant was arrested on June 20th, 2024 for the following offenses: aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and riot in a penal institution. Defendant has limited previous criminal history. Defendant is a Georgia resident and has substantial family ties. Defendant has no reason to contact victims or witnesses. Defendant was in custody for, and then they cite the indictment there, in which he was found not guilty on all accounts. But for his arrest on said case, defendant would not have been in custody. So Kayla's basically saying the same thing we just said. Defendant has been in continuous custody since May 9th of 2022, and during this time has been a victim of stabbing and has had several threats of harm made on him. On December 1st, 2024, Mr. Kendrick was stabbed in his head at the Fulton County Jail. It is evident that the Fulton County Sheriff's Office cannot keep Mr. Kendrick safe. Also, the conditions reported in the Department of Justice report issued on November 14th of 2024 explicitly concluded the following. The Justice Department's report concluded that Fulton County and the Fulton County Sheriff's Office allowed unsafe and unsanitary conditions at the jail. As a result, people incarcerated in Fulton County Jail suffered from pest infestation, we talked about that, and malnourishment, and were put at substantial risk of serious harm from violence by other incarcerated people, including homicides, stabbing, and we're going to say SA. The unconstitutional and unlawful conditions at the Fulton County Jail have persisted for far too long, and we are committed to working with Fulton County and Fulton County Sheriff's Office to remedy them. If granted a bond, defendant will follow all conditions deemed necessary by this honorable court. Defendant will appear at all future court dates, will not commit any criminal offenses while out on bond, will not leave the jurisdiction of the court, will not be a danger to any witness, persons, or property. Respectfully submitted, this 9th day of December 2024. Respectfully submitted, Caleb Bumpus, putting in work. Now, you're probably wondering who is going to make the decision on this. I see a couple of y'all asking that in the chat. Shout out to Caleb for putting in work over here. Well, Thugger Daily has our back there too. So the person who is going to be making the decision on this is Judge McBurney. Now, we've seen Judge McBurney before. If you've been following this case for a while, Judge McBurney has been involved in other things going on throughout Fulton County and other trials. Fannie knows Judge McBurney very well. We won't get into that today. But Judge McBurney set a bond hearing date for the 17th. So we're going to have a couple of things going on the 17th. We're going to have court resuming for Judge Whitaker, and we're going to have Judge McBurney having a bond hearing for Yak Gotti. All right. Thugger Daily also says same motion was filed for his contraband case too, which before was seen by Judge Whitaker. All right. So this is basically the same thing, and they used it here. All right. Now, Doug Weinstein did have something to say because I don't know. I haven't been hearing anything about this, and I was honestly surprised to find out that he wasn't representing Deamonte Kendrick anymore. But it kind of makes sense because Kayla does have a lot more experience on this criminal side of things and handling and how things work within Fulton County. As we know, this was Doug Weinstein's first time even having a criminal case. Shout out to Doug for being 1-0, by the way. Absolutely killing it. But let's go and see what he said about Diamante Kendrick finding and taking new counsel.
Good morning, everybody. Hey, I just want to clear up some confusion that people seem to have. Every person, every defendant, every client has a Sixth Amendment right to counsel of their choice. And Diamante Kendrick hired the law firm that I work for, the App law firm, to represent him in this complex RICO case. And so I work for the law firm and I represented Diamante Kendrick in that RICO case. During the course of that case, of course, when he was really wrongly jailed,
it's true,
out on bond, he picked up charges in the jail, as anyone in jail for 2.5 years that is accused of gang activity, it's going to happen. You have to protect yourself. So he picked up some charges. At that point, Diamante Kendrick, Yak, he has some choices as to who he wants to hire. And Diamante chose to hire another law firm. And that is, again, that is his right. So I can't step in and represent somebody that doesn't hire me. That doesn't mean our relationship has changed at all. It doesn't mean I have any less love for Diamante and his mom, Tasha. They are still family. They just chose, for their own reasons, to hire somebody else to represent him on these charges, these far lesser charges than were at stake in the RICO case. So I respect that decision, not offended by that decision. It's not uncommon. It happens all the time. So everybody that is, I don't know, expressing various forms of emotion about that, my suggestion is just
I didn't even know it happened.
And respect Diamante's choices there.
Yep, and shout out to Doug again. Amazing job. Doug's job is done. He got a major win. His client is walking free. Imagine being able to say that. Amazing work. So shout out to Doug. He did his job. You know, he gets to just say a prayer and hope Yak gets out soon. I think Kayla, she's going to do a good job. She's putting in the work, and we'll see what happens for Yak and Shannon. Hopefully they can get back home before the holidays. Anyway, what do y'all think? Let me know. Shout out to Floyd in the building, dropping the 20 bomb. Says, is Judge Whitaker the one that will hear this? No. And I saw that in the chat earlier, Floyd. Thank you for asking that question. Duggar Daly said it is going to be Judge McBurney, and he set the bond hearing for Tuesday the 17th. So